Welcome back to Timeless Messages from the I Ching. This is Stephen. Thanks for tuning in. So today's question I'm asking is, what do viewers need to know to enhance their creative process? What do viewers need to know at the time they find this video to enhance their creative process? So it's all about creativity. And as you can see, the two hexagrams that I received from casting the silver dollars are limitation, number 60, the abysmal water at the top, can, and then Tui, the joyous lake at the bottom. And then it changes with a changing line in the third position. The X between the two broken lines is a yin line that then changes to a yang or masculine line in the second hexagram. And the second hexagram is the first trigram, kan, does not change. And then the bottom changes to Chien, which is heaven. So the abysmal water over heaven. So, and that is called waiting nourishment. So let's delve into this. If you'd like to relax and just close your eyes, I'll begin to read and offer the translation. So, limitation. A lake occupies a limited space. When more water comes into it, it overflows. Therefore, limits must be set for the water. The image shows water below and water above, with a firmament between them as a limit. Heaven, the firmament, between them as a limit. The Chinese word for limitation really means the joints that divide a bamboo stalk. In relation to ordinary life, limitation means the thrift that sets fixed limits upon expenditures, essentially living within your means. In relation to the moral sphere, it means the fixed limits that the superior person sets upon their actions, the limits of loyalty and disinterestedness. So the limits of loyalty, when you reach your limits of loyalty, okay, I'll go that far for you in terms of my loyalty, but past that point, it's too far for me. And then I have to pull back, retreat, and remain somewhat disinterested because it's gone too far in terms of what you're asking. So we have to have limits. This is what the whole hexagram is talking about, placing limits in order to sustain our lives. And like riverbanks, water flows between two riverbanks. It's not an infinite amount of space that the water is flowing between, but it's a fixed limit of space, and therefore those water banks direct the flow of the water, the flow of the energy in a particular direction. The judgment, limitation, success, galling or severe limitation must not be persevered in. Limitations are troublesome, but they are effective. If we live economically in normal times, we're prepared for times of want. To be sparing saves us from humiliation. Limitations are also indispensable in the regulation of world conditions. In nature, there are fixed limits for summer and winter, day and night, and these limits give the year its meaning. In the same way, economy, by setting fixed limits upon our expenditures, acts to preserve our property and prevent injury to the people. So we don't spend more than we should. We have thrift and economy, and we don't go into debt, and we don't do things that are stupid in terms of spending too much. So this is a perfect example of setting limits. In limitation, we must observe due measure. If a person will seek to impose severe limitations upon their own nature, this would be damaging and would cause injury. And if they would go too far in imposing limitations on others, these other people would rebel. Therefore, it is necessary to set limits even upon limitation. So here we have the idea of you don't want to go too far in creating such severe and intense limitations upon yourself or upon others that you or other people will rebel against them. You want the limitations that you set to be reasonable and modest and in a balanced fashion. So the image, water over lake, the image of limitation. Thus the superior man or woman creates number and measure and examines the nature of virtue and correct conduct. The superior person creates number and measure and examines the nature of virtue and correct conduct. A lake is something limited. Water is inexhaustible. A lake can contain only a definite amount of the infinite quantity of water. So here we have the abysmal water at the top, and below we have Tui, which is a very defined body of water, a lake. So the lake can only contain so much of the infinite amount of water that is residing above it. Water comes down from the heavens. So in human life, too, the individual achieves significance through discrimination and the setting of limits. Therefore, what concerns us here is the problem of clearly defining these discriminations, which are, so to speak, the backbone of morality. Unlimited possibilities are not suited to humanity. And if unlimited possibilities existed, their lives would only dissolve into the eternal, into the boundless. To become strong, a person's life needs the limitations that are ordained or set forth by what they feel is their duty. And they need to accept voluntarily these limitations that their duty essentially requires. The individual attains significance as a free spirit only when they surround themselves with these limitations and when they determine for themselves what their duty truly is. So here we have the idea of limitations and one's duty, performing one's duty, and understanding that accepting these limitations voluntarily is the way forward, because the limitations are going to help the person move forward in their life. If they don't have any limitations, then nothing essentially gets done. There's too much freedom. There are no riverbanks. The river doesn't have any direction whatsoever, and it just goes everywhere. And nothing gets accomplished. The energy doesn't move in any particular direction, just everywhere. So likewise with humans, the limitations help us to funnel and channel choices, forces, energies to our own advantages. So we want to surround ourselves with the limitations that we determine are not too severe, that are balanced, and also we want to make sure that we don't set limits that are too extreme for others. So the lines, the changing line is the third line on the lower trigram, which is the third, it's a 6 in the third place. Let's read about that. 6 in the third place means the person who knows no limitation will have cause to lament, no blame. If an individual is focused only on pleasures and enjoyment, it's easy for this person to lose their sense of the limits that are necessary. And if this person gives themselves over to extravagance, they'll have to suffer the consequences with accompanying regret. This person must not seek to lay the blame on others. Only when we realize that our mistakes are of our own making will such disagreeable experiences free us of errors. So here we have the idea of the person, if the person is taking pleasure and enjoyment, that's essentially what they're all about, focused entirely on pleasure and enjoyment, then they lose their sense of the limits that are necessary to funnel the energy and have the success they want in their lives. So in terms of life experience, if we're in a disagreeable experience, we find ourselves in such a circumstance, we want to take responsibility for the experience ourselves rather than laying the blame upon others. And in this limitation of accepting responsibility, we realize that our mistakes are of our own making, and therefore we can get out of the abyss and move forward with greater progress and insight and vision. So in terms of the creative process, these are very relevant ideas about the benefit of setting limitation. Could be, okay, how much time do I need to devote on a weekly basis or daily basis to my creative process? Is there a way for me to enhance this without being too severe? And if I request too much of myself, then I'm going to rebel. Similarly, if the creative process is our business and we have people working with us in a creative process, we don't want to set limits that are so damaging and creating injury for them, because they're going to rebel as well. There has to be a happy medium. So the idea of setting limits and the benefits thereof. Moving on, we have the second hexagram. The energy moves toward waiting and nourishment from limitation. So Waiting, nourishment. All beings have need of nourishment from above, but the gift of food comes in its own time, and for this we must wait. This hexagram shows the clouds in the sky, in the heavens, giving rain to refresh all that grows and to provide humanity with food and drink. The rain will come in its own time. We cannot make it come. We can't force it. We have to wait for it. The idea of waiting is further suggested by the attributes of the two trigrams: strength within, danger in front. So strength within would be heaven at the bottom, and danger in front, Khan, the abysmal water, the abyss in front of us, danger in front. Strength, or heaven, in the face of danger does not plunge ahead, but bides its time. So it essentially, strength, when there's danger, strength will choose what's the right time for me to move forward. Okay, it bides its time. Whereas a person who's weak, in the face of danger, they grow agitated and they don't have the patience to wait for the right time. So here we have the idea of time in terms of the creative process, that creativity could be likened to the clouds up in heaven, up in the sky, that are going to drop nourishment or rain upon the earth and bless humanity and all creation. And this rain, and when it falls, is the time that the creative is being expressed. And so we have to wait for this right time. We can't necessarily force it into being. We can practice and allow creativity to come through as much as possible. And if we are patient rather than impatient, this will be the key to allowing this creativity and this attunement to the natural time frame that the rain will come and bless us. We can't make it come at the time that we want it to. We simply have to wait for it and bide our time. Now, the weak person does not do this. They grow agitated and they don't have the patience to wait. They force things. So this is, as the I Ching is recommending, not the way to proceed. So the judgment, waiting, if you are sincere, you have light and success. Perseverance brings good fortune, and it furthers one to cross the great water. Waiting is not mere empty hoping. Waiting has the inner certainty of reaching its goal, and such certainty alone gives the light which leads to success. And this leads to the perseverance that brings good fortune and bestows power to cross the great water. What's the great water? Crossing the great water is completing a good big project or completing something that you've been working on for a while. It's taking some time, as opposed to crossing the small puddle. One is faced with a danger that has to be overcome. Here we have the idea of danger again in terms of the abysmal water, Khan. Weakness and impatience can do nothing. Only a strong person can stand up to their fate, for this inner security will enable them to endure to the end. And this strength shows itself in uncompromising truthfulness with themselves. They're being truthful with themselves, and this is a strength. Uncompromising truthfulness with themselves, being honest with themselves. And it's only when we have the courage to face things exactly as they are, without any sort of self-deception or illusion, that a light develops out of events by which we recognize the path to success. Read this once more. If it is only when we have the courage to face things exactly as they are, without any sort of self-deception or illusion, that a light will develop out of events by which the path to success is recognized. So, as we face things exactly as they are and don't deceive ourselves, then a light or wisdom develops and we see the path to success that we need to take. Okay? And this recognition is followed by resolute or decisive and persevering action. For only the person who goes to meet their fate resolutely or decisively is equipped to deal with their fate adequately. For then they will be able to cross the great water, meaning complete great projects, and that is to say, they will be capable of making the necessary decisions and of rising above the danger. So here we have the idea of latching on to decisive and persevering action, after which We've had the courage to face things exactly as they are. We see a light to our path to progress in a certain direction, and we take these resolute, decisive, persevering actions, and then we meet our fate with decisiveness, and we're equipped to deal with it. And then we can cross the great water or complete these projects through this decisiveness, and we'll be capable of making the necessary decisions and of rising above any type of danger. So that's a hopeful message. The image, clouds rising up to heaven, the image of waiting. Thus the superior person eats and drinks, is joyous and of good cheer. When clouds rise in the sky, it's a sign that it will rain. There is nothing to do but to wait until the rain falls. It's the same in life when destiny is at work. And we shouldn't worry and seek to shape the future by interfering in things before the time is ripe. We should quietly strengthen our bodies with food and drink, and our minds with gladness and good cheer. For fate comes when it will, and thus we are ready. So here in this final paragraph, it talks about rain falling and us waiting for the rain to fall. Clouds have risen in the sky. It's a sign that it will rain. Hasn't rained just yet, but it's going to soon. And it's the same in terms of when destiny is at work in our life. We have to be patient, and we shouldn't worry or seek to shape the future by interfering in things before the time is ripe. Therefore, we should live our lives in such a way that we're strengthening our bodies and our minds with food and drink and gladness and good cheer. So we want to stay in gladness and good cheer and fortify our bodies with good food and drink. Therefore, if we do this, then destiny or fate comes when it will, when it's the right time, and thus we are completely ready to meet our fate, our destiny. So in terms of the creative process, I think this is very encouraging. The idea of the rain clouds and the rain dropping and being patient rather than being weak, because the weak person does not wait for the right time. They plunge ahead willfully, and they don't meet the situation with the right time frame, and things don't work out as well. So we have to be patient, be of good cheer, fortify ourselves, and by doing so, fate or destiny comes to us when it will. Our creativity, our creative expression, the unfoldment, the inspiration, the intuition, the hunches, the hints about how to proceed with our flow, and then we are ready to move forward. So I hope these messages have been beneficial for you. I would listen to them at least once or twice more and consider the most important ideas and write those down, and begin to incorporate them as much as possible into your life. Ask yourself, am I creating enough limits? Am I creating too many limits in my life? Am I creating limits that are too severe for myself or others? And if so, how can I get to a balanced place? Am I being patient with the process? Because the creative process is like a waiting game. Sometimes we don't want to force it, and it has its own time frame. So be of good cheer, fortify your body, and fate and destiny will come. Thanks for listening, and take care.